Well, hello again. It must be time for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
I'm Sarah O'Connell, and a very warm welcome to the third episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. This week I'll be interviewing KickAss creator Mark Millar.
Hi, I'm Mark Millar, and welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Telling you my top 10 superhero movies of all time and giving you the chance to win some fantastic Lionsgate DVDs. I absolutely love going to live events, be it stand-up comedy, theatre or music. There's nothing that quite beats getting together with people from different cultures and ethnicities who just share a mutual passion for something. And even if the performer's done the show thousands of times, each one's going to be a little bit different. I recently went to see Mika perform at the London Palladium. Now, I've seen him a couple of times before, but I managed to get tickets quite near the front row, and as he was only performing once in the UK this year, I couldn't miss it. Now, the show's very much like a party. It's just fun from start to finish, and at the end of it, they released a lot of confetti from the ceiling, and I mean a lot, to the point where you couldn't even see the stage anymore. But anyway, I sort of brushed it all off of me and all that kind of thing, made myself look presentable, made my way back to the tube and went to get my ticket out, and this happened. My bag was completely full of confetti, and it looked like a piñata had exploded or I'd started an impromptu carnival or something. But it got me thinking how much more fun life would be if every time you reached your purse or your phone in your pocket or your bag, this happened. A lot more, I think you'll agree. Growing up in the 1980s, I was a huge fan of shows like The Young Ones and Bottom, starring Ade Edmondson and Rick Mell. Now, Rick Mell sadly died just over 2 years ago, and I was just thinking about him recently, so I thought I'd share this story too. I was lucky enough to see Bottom live twice, including the aptly named Weapons Grade Y-Fronts tour. At the end of the show, Ade and Rick would put on a massive pair of pants each and then do a final song on stage. At the end of the song, Rick Mell took his pants off and threw them into the audience. And as I could see they were going in my sort of general direction, I decided to stand up and see if I could catch them. Now, usually the only thing I'm good at catching is a cold, but anyway, I kind of stood up and reached out like that, and I managed to catch Rick Mell's pants. Now, I had mixed feelings. One, I was excited that I'd actually caught something, and two, I was fully aware that I was holding, and I'm still holding, a sweaty pair of pants. But I've come to regard them as a sort of really cool memento from a brilliant show. As I'm interviewing the legendary Mark Millar this week, I thought it'd be fun to share with you my top 10 superhero movies of all time. Directed by Sam Raimi, Spider-Man 2 was a huge improvement over the original, and I think that's predominantly because the lead villain wasn't a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger. Also, Peter Parker hadn't turned emo yet and caught Saturday Night Fever, making this definitely the best film in the trilogy. And number 9, M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable stars Bruce Willis as a man who, as the title suggests, cannot be broken. It also co-starred Samuel L. Jackson, who I think you'll agree gave a smashing performance. M. Night Shyamalan would of course go on to direct such classic films as The Happening, Lady in the Water, The Last Airbender, and After Earth. At number 8, Ryan Reynolds spent years trying to get a Deadpool movie made before test footage accidentally leaked onto the internet. Oops. What sets Deadpool apart is that Wade Wilson is actually aware that he's inside a movie, leading to some fantastic pop culture references. Deadpool made $778 million at the global box office, meaning it outperformed every single XMen movie like some kind of cinematic Viagra. And number 7, Guardians of the Galaxy is perhaps the greatest film ever to feature a raccoon and a talking tree in space. Marvel's most outlandish adventure also happens to be one of their best, and a sequel is already in production for release in 2017. Chris Pratt and the gang have more chemistry than a marathon of Breaking Bad episodes, and the soundtrack is also a must-have. And number 6, Blade is about a vampire killer and was the first Marvel film to be released theatrically in the United States since Howard the Duck in the 1980s. A gory mix of horror and action, it'll get your adrenaline pumping more than Wesley Snipes filling in his tax returns. And number 5 is KickAss, created by Mark Millar, who I'll be speaking to very shortly. I don't actually sound right saying that. I feel like I should be saying kick-ass or something, because I'm English. Anyway, the film features a superhero without any special abilities, who teams up with a verbally and physically violent hit girl and Batman cosplay champion Nicolas Cage. They unite to take on the McLovin of supervillains in a film that's very violent, very funny, and kicks more bottom than a serious case of piles. And number 4 is Disney Pixar's The Incredibles, which features a family who harness powers such as super speed, super strength, elasticity, and invisibility. Now you might be thinking that sounds an awful lot like the Fantastic Four, with a slight difference that it's actually good. And number 3 is Avengers Assemble. Now I quite easily could have populated the entire top 10 list with Marvel movies, but this one was the most highly anticipated for me because it was the first time we saw the Iron Man, Black Widow, Captain America, Thor, and the scene-stealing Incredible Hulk all together at once. As Marvel keep throwing more and more characters into their films, such as Age of Ultron and Civil War, I think it's going to get to the point where they're going to have to install a 140 character limit like on Twitter. We've inadvertently come down to Batman vs Superman fighting out for the top 2 positions on the list. I can reveal that number 2 is The Dark Knight. Now, I was never actually a huge fan of Christian Bale as Batman, but to be honest, he could have been played by Mr. Blobby and this still would have been very high up on my list, due solely to Heath Ledger's Oscar-winning performance as the Joker. In fact, I'd say as a villain it's probably unrivaled in superhero movies. I'd also like to do a shout out to the 1966 comedy classic Batman the movie, which is also a must watch. In joint first place is Richard Donner's Superman the Movie and Superman 2, where Christopher Reeve plays the definitive version of Superman. Now there are some scenes in the films that don't make sense, such as when he travels at high speed around the world to turn back time Cher styly. I mean, why doesn't he just do that all the time? And also when he moderately inconveniences people by throwing plastic S's out of his chest. Again, why doesn't he do that all the time? And also we should probably forget all of Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. But with Christopher Reeve's perfect balancing of the Man of Steel and his alter ego Clark Kent, along with his winning smile at the end of every movie, these are the only Superman films that I'll acknowledge exist. I hope you enjoyed my list of top 10 superhero movies and be sure to let me know what yours are in the comments. I'm now delighted to bring you my exclusive interview with Mark Millar. Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. Thank you for being here. You are, of course, a comic book legend. You were involved with KickAss and Wanted and Marvel and DC and all these things and created all your own properties too. So the first thing I think I'd like to talk about is a bit about your creative process. Do you, when you're sort of coming up with ideas for characters and stories, do you think visually? Do you sort of storyboard stuff, or do you go straight in and just start writing?
Oh, I do loads of planning, and there's nothing brilliantly organised about it. I mean, it really is as simple as I sit in a chair. In fact, that messy chair over here, I sit in that chair.
Right.
Just sit with. I always use the same thing. It's a bit OCD, but like I always use one of these pads and I always use one of these pens, and I just start doodling. I just start doing little drawings or writing down lines, and something emerges. And sometimes I can spend 3 days just doing that. Just sitting doodling, and it gets used 3 years later or something. It's weird. And I just put it in a little ring binder and it's off. And then I jump back onto something else. But what I generally do is I do about maybe 2 weeks prep before I start writing something. If it's a 4 or a 6 issue story arc, which I tend to work in, I'll do a couple of weeks prep and work out everything. And I just find, I used to try and wing it up until about maybe 4 years ago. I used to wing it, and then I'd write myself into a corner and then be like, oh, I wish I could change all of this, So it's lovely having it all planned out. It's like if you're building a house, you don't just grab a door and a window and hope for the best. It always works best. It's not going to fall down if you have a plan. So I like to plan everything.
Absolutely. So do you have sort of characters that have never sort of seen the light of day that you've got in the back of your mind one day that's going to be the...
Oh, yeah. There's actually, my wife and I sat the other night. It was just one of these stupid curiosity things because, I like to have everything all sort of like organised and everything, and I was sort of planning out the next couple of years, and I was trying to decide what projects I was going to write over the next couple of years. And I had 17 creator-owned things that I haven't got around to yet. And I know that'll become 30 creator-owned things over the next couple of years, but at the moment there's 17. And there's about 6 I'm really passionate about. But at the same time, I've got all my sequels that I want to write too. I want to do a sequel to Superior. I want to do a sequel to Empress because I've had a great time doing that. I want to do a sequel to Reborn. So I wish I was one of those guys that could write fast, but I can only do 2 books a month tops. I average about 22 issues a year.
Wow, that's a lot.
Well, do you know that's actually really small compared to most of my friends? Like most of my pals do 5 books a month, 4 or 5 books a month, and they still seem to do other stuff outside of comics. I can never, that's about 50, 60 books a year. I've never done more than 23, I think, in 1 year. So I don't know, I just spend, I don't know, I spend too much time on Twitter and YouTube, I guess.
So is it the kind of thing that you still really enjoy the whole story writing process, or is it the kind of thing where you might see yourself one day just sort of blocking out ideas for stories and then sort of outsourcing them in a way to other people, perhaps?
I think I would never outsource a story I'd written, you know, like I think I would give a character I'd written, certainly. But imagine, you know, you were coming in to write Superman and Jerry Siegel was saying to you, right, I want you to work from these plots for the next 5 years. You'd be like, what? You know, I've got my own ideas for Superman, and same with Batman or whatever. It's just giving up a character is quite hard. I mean, it really is something you've invested a lot of your time and emotion in and everything, and to lose that is really quite hard. And I've only just started doing it. And the first place I did it was the Millar World Annual, which was, I think, to try and help new people break into the industry. And it was really nice to do, you know, because like it was lovely to see someone else's perspective on your characters. Because it was little short stories, I sort of could accept that. It was like somebody babysitting your kids, you know. Whereas then somebody coming in and doing a whole run on your character, that's like a full adoption, you know, that's like a big thing. So I've always sort of hesitated about that, but at the same time, a lot of these characters are popular and they should have a life beyond me, you know. So like Hit Girl, for example, I'm writing the first 6 issues of the relaunched Hit Girl that starts in January, but then Daniel Way's coming in to start with the second arc. And he's already handed in the first issue, and it's fantastic. I think it's actually better than the ones I've been doing. So like, so that's a lovely feeling as well. It's a bit like being Jor-El, sending your baby off, and it's the Kents that get them. You know, they're going to be just fine. You know, so I feel like that. As long as I've got good people sort of on the things, I'm very happy about them extending beyond that.
Fantastic. Now, I was a huge fan of KickAss, both the comic books and the movies. So could you tell me a bit about how the idea for that came around?
Yes, it's very autobiographical, actually. Like I think, like most teenage boys who like comic books, I entertained the idea of being a superhero, which does sound mentally ill, you know. But genuinely, I utterly believed it, and I would sit and design costumes. But maybe it was about 14, 15, like a little bit too old to be thinking about it as a real possibility, you know. So one of my friends was kind of into it too, me, and we both sat and planned this thing out, and we never did it. But KickAss was the kind of alternate reality of what might have happened if I'd done it. And that's where the first issue came from, the idea that he goes out first night on patrol and he gets stabbed, you know, because that's realistically what's going to happen. You know, you don't have Batman's money or training or anything like that, so you're just going to end up lying in a gutter, bleeding to death, or probably in your first night.
Absolutely, and I think that's what sort of endeared me to the character, because, you know, the Clark Kent even, or Batman, or whoever it is, they're all sort of out of this world characters, whereas, you know, this person, as many kids would sort of imagine themselves being a superhero, and then it just goes wrong, which is probably a good message to everybody.
Well, it's funny because it's quite easy to write KickAss for that reason. Like, you know, if Batman's kind of like jumped on by 4 guys and somebody knocks him out and then he's tied to something or whatever, you know, and then he escapes, KickAss is just kind of like doing it for real like that. If he gets knocked out, somebody's just going to shoot him in the head. You know, he's not getting tied up and has a death trap he has to get out of it in. So I just apply comic book tropes to the real world, and then KickAss kind of writes itself from there. So it wouldn't have been unthinkable. One of my friends, Damon Lindelof, the guy who did Lost, he said to me, I dare you to just kill KickAss just halfway through an issue sometime, because that's what was happening in real life. And it was just so brave to do something like that I just didn't have the nerve, because in life we don't have satisfying conclusions. You know, we don't have the end of our arc where everything just ties up neatly. You know, there will just be a moment where you look around and you're hit by a truck or something, and all your plans go out the window.
So just have them go to a restaurant and choke on some food and die that way, and it's not even...
Definitely. Most people have a stupid death.
So today it's been announced that there will be a new KickAss, a female black KickAss person. Very exciting news I read on the Hollywood Reporter. So that's out in January 2017 as well?
Yeah, Hit Girl and KickAss both launches monthly books in January. And I've never done a monthly, actually. Millar World has been around for 12 years now, since Wanted, and we've never done a monthly, so this is quite exciting. You just have something that's out there every month like that for as long as.
Absolutely. And what do you think it would take at this point to get back and do KickAss 3, or perhaps a Hit Girl prequel, which was suggested at some point?
As a movie?
Yeah.
I think like KickAss 1 with a budget of 28 million and made 100 million back. and then went on and did very well on DVD and TV rights. It did about another 140 million or something. So on that 28 million investment that people put into it, it made 240 million back, so it was great. The second one cost 24 million. It was a little cheaper, but it only did 60 million. And although it made a slight profit, it wasn't enough to excite the investors to do more. So you just got to respect that. That just means the audience wasn't there for a third one. So you just, the market is honest with you. If people want a third one, they go and see the second one, and not enough people went to see the second one. It was that simple. And I'm not a big fan of prequels. I actually really don't like prequels. Like I remember having a word with Matthew Vaughn about this. We were talking about prequels, and I said, I don't think they ever work. Like the Star Wars prequels obviously had the problems, and like any prequel I think in history is never quite lives up to the other movies, because you kind of know, even very subconsciously when you're watching it, that everybody's going to be okay because you've seen them in the later movie. So it's a very, very subtle thing, but I think that no matter how good it is, the element of tension is just intrinsically removed from a prequel. But Matthew was saying, what about Godfather? And I said, well, Godfather 2 moved the story on at the same time as doing a prequel as well, so there was still the tension of what was happening in the future. And then I said, tell me, there's never been one good prequel ever. And he was really kind of sulky on the phone, and I was like, what do you mean? He says, what about X-Men First Class? And I was like, oh my God, I forgot he did that. The X-Men First Class was great, but like, but I think, it's rare. It's really rare that I see a prequel work. So I've always been kind of cautious of a prequel. Matthew loves the idea of doing a KickAss prequel at some point, a Hit Girl prequel, and doing the story of Big Daddy and Hit Girl, and you would have a new 8-year-old playing. And it's only funny if Hit Girl's small. Like if Hit Girl's 10 and she's firing a gun, it's kind of visually interesting, and hanging out with her dad and everything. But if she's 18 and doing it, it just seems kind of normal, probably for Americans, So like, it just, I don't know. I think if you are doing it, you have to make it 8 years old, and then, like I say, I don't know how excited I am about prequel.
That's it. So I think the great thing about KickAss was, so Hit Girl, she seemed invincible. She was incredible at fighting all these things, but KickAss wasn't. So she almost sort of came in to save the day, where you sort of almost expected him to die at any point. So he was that bit more vulnerable and younger. That could definitely work.
Yes, I think the two of them worked well together, but interestingly, you almost couldn't team them up, because what makes him work in a story, she solves immediately. Because if he is struggling, which is the point of KickAss, he's not Batman, but he has Batman essentially to bail him out. If he's got Hit Girl there, it doesn't work. You have to keep them separate. I really found that when I was writing the stories. It's only for moments they come together, but they generally should be kept apart in the storylines for him to have any sense of tension in his stories. But I think she's such a fun character, and I always like the idea of inverting what you expect. Like, I tend to do female leads. I mean, I found over the last sort of 3 years or so, generally. So I've been doing female leads, whether it's Jupiter's Legacy or Empress or the thing I've been working on for the last little while, last 6 months, Reborn. I kind of like it, and I like to flip it where the girl's going in to rescue the guy. And I think it's probably having 3 daughters. I mean, I've got three girls in the house, so I don't know. Like I'm the one that gets rescued. I guess I'm here. It's like this. I rule the roost, and I'm just the guy that shows up occasionally for dinner.
Fantastic. So moving on to Kingsman. Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle is currently in production. How is that going? What stage is it at now? You mentioned you'd be getting involved with the editing in a few months. So how is that going?
Well, it's funny because this is the first thing that I've been involved with that there's no book. Dave and I just did one book, which is amazing for us because we actually get paid the same plus 10% that we got for the first one, but we haven't had to write the book, and we were like, this is amazing. Long may this continue, because we own the rights to the characters. So that's awesome. But but it is kind of weird because it's you have the same relationship that I guess the Lethal Weapon guys had as they made more Lethal Weapon movies. Like, you just created the characters, you haven't done the new story. So I'm kind of coming at this one almost as a fan. So it couldn't be in better hands. I mean, Matthew and Jane are like the best team in cinema, I think, right now. I love the two of those guys together. So Jane writing it, Matthew directing it. It's going to be awesome. Any of my adaptations, the writer, the creator is never involved at the filming stage. We tend to be sort of talking to everybody before they start filming, and then we come in and watch edits of the film and give producer notes on the edits. But the actual filming, that's when everybody steps back and lets the director do their thing. That's the director's domain for those 12, 14 weeks that the thing films. So right now, I'm just heading down, doing a little royal visit, saying hello to everyone. This is the easy part for me.
Can we talk a little bit about Colin Firth? I don't know how much you can say, but rumour has it that he is returning.
Do you know, it's one of those things that I actually cannot say. I do know whether he's coming back or not, but I can't say anything because I think there's playing around with something kind of clever, you know. So you don't want to do any spoilers. I kind of like the idea of people being surprised. I don't know, you know, by the time the movie comes out, how surprised people are going to be at some of the ideas and everything because so much gets spoiled online. But you know, it's a great idea. I mean, everything I've seen on it just looks brilliant. So all I can say is, if you like the first one, you'll like this one.
Fantastic. So you've been the creative consultant for 20th Century Fox since 2012, I believe.
Yeah.
How do you find the time, and what things are you working on with them at the moment?
Well, my role at Fox is quite interesting actually because it's really easy. All I do is I have meetings with the people sort of in the executive suite, you know. So I go along and I'll just sit there and we'll just chat and talk about possibilities. And to be honest, I mean, I think my 4 years is actually up in a couple of months. And I'm going to do something else for Fox beyond that we should be talking about soon. But really, I mean, I'm more sort of focused on my own things really at the moment, you know. But like Fox have got something almost the size of the Marvel universe, just with the XMen universe, because there's so many spin-off characters from that you can use. You know, you've got your retro X-Men stuff, you've got your contemporary X-Men, which is starting to come into just now, and then the spin-off characters like Cable, Deadpool, all this kind of thing. So my role tends to be just sitting in a room with the execs and just saying, you know who'd be cool? It'd be great to do this, and people just spitballing kind of possibilities, or talking about writers, or talking about directors. It's very easy, I must say. You know, I'm not having to be down on set or putting my money into it or anything the way they're actually doing.
Sounds good. So speaking of Deadpool, for example, it made about 778 million globally at the box office. Do you think this might open things up so that there could be more R-rated superhero movies?
Kind of. I remember there was a great tweet that somebody did when Deadpool's box office came in, and they said, "I wonder what wrong lessons the rest of Hollywood will learn from this box office." And I think that was the wisest tweet ever, because Deadpool worked because it was good and it was unique, you know, and it was funny, and it was just a good night out, you know, when everything else was getting a little po-faced. I mean, Civil War was a pretty good film, but it was very serious, you know, and it wasn't a lot of fun. Batman and Superman was very dark, and it wasn't a nice night out or anything. You know? It was a breaker-upper movie as opposed to a date night.
You know? It was, yeah.
Whereas Deadpool, I think, stood out for the same reason I think Kingsman probably did the year before, and Guardians of the Galaxy did the year before that. And it was kind of joyous, you know. It just felt kind of funny because it was about a guy with cancer and everything. It still felt kind of nice, you know. You come out of it in a good mood. And I've noticed
most uplifting film of the year, even though he was dying of cancer, which says a lot about comic book movies.
I know. And I think I totally get that whole period where everything was being very serious around about 2008. So, but by the time we got to Avengers in 2012, I think audiences were rewarding studios for giving them a good time. It suddenly shifted. There was like an absolute paradigm shift, because Dark Knight Rises came out that year, and I thought that was an excellent film, but it was as well loved as Dark Knight was, you know, like, because I just think the audience had slightly moved on and was looking for something more like Avengers by that point, because nothing stands still and pop culture has to constantly evolve. And what you had then, I think, was people then excited about Guardians of the Galaxy, and like I say, Kingsman the following year was a surprise hit. And I think we're probably sort of still in that, I think, for the next few years. I think people are going to want to have a little bit of a good time. So I think that the lesson I would take from Deadpool is to make these things entertaining, not necessarily to make them gory or sweary, you know. And that's gory and sweary is great, but you don't then need to do an R-rated cut of Superman or something like that. You know, you just stay true to the character. And what made Deadpool work is its irreverence. So if you can go ultra irreverent with it, that's cool. But you don't necessarily need to apply that to Spider-Man or something, you know. I think you just make them good and you make them fun.
Absolutely, because I think even, you know, the most violent films, or even horror films, they need moments where the audience laughs and relaxes a bit, just so the next scare works. Because otherwise, if it's just at one level, it doesn't have the same impact. Yeah,
totally. A comedian friend of mine said that to me. He said that, like, you need light and shade, and he does it with jokes as well. Before he goes really dark on something, he'll be like light, and then the dark really hits you, you know. And it's the same with movies as well, particularly superhero movies. And I think, you know, when we get to the point where we're thinking, okay, how can we sell these to adults? I think we've lost something too, you know, because I fell in love with superheroes before I can even remember. So I must have been 3, 4. So my earliest memories, I was already into superheroes. I already had superhero toys and superhero comics. So to remove children from the equation entirely is nuts. Like Superman the movie is a perfect example, and Avengers is a great example. These things can be great, and adults and children can enjoy them. So don't alienate a section of the audience that's maybe should be your primary target.
That's it, 'cause they work at all levels, and I think even if you take a Disney film, stuff like Zootropolis, it's for kids, it's rated G, but there's references to Breaking Bad in there that a 5-year-old won't get, but you know, it just works on many levels.
My 5-year-old worryingly would get it. That's the thing. I should be putting this stuff on in the background too much. But like, Zootropolis is my favourite movie this year. And I would say Jungle Book's my number 2. I really enjoyed Jungle Book as well. And interestingly, I don't know, like the superhero films I've been less excited about this year than I have been in previous years. I think there was a sort of creative high point with the superheroes in 2014, and I think it will come back as well. But last year was a very iffy year for superhero movies, and this year has been very uneven as well. So I don't know. We'll see how Suicide Squad does. I hope it does good. I hope Strange does well. People that are making it are really good. But we're in an interesting period because we've had 16 years of superhero cinema, and like. You know, it's very hard to maintain that. You know, it's like not many trends last this long. So I think what they need to do is remember what made these things work, which was incredibly high quality people behind the camera. Don't go cheap with the talent and everything. Just make sure you've got big writers, big directors, and big actors. Because the minute you start cutting corners and you know, sort of thinking the studio knows better than the director and everything, then you're in real trouble. So I think this is a bit of a crossroads. I hope they make the right choices for what's going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important, even if you get a film that works, not just to keep retreading the same ground, because I think superhero films are almost becoming episodic in the way that, you know, it used to be that you might have one big movie a year, but now they're sort of every few months, almost like a TV show, if you like. You're sort of waiting for the next episode, but by, you know, bringing in different directors and, you know, superheroes you've never heard of, it sort of keeps people's interest a bit more.
I think that's what I liked about Zootropolis, actually, is that I went to see a movie that had a beginning, a middle, and a satisfying conclusion. And there was no guy walking in at the end saying, and wait, you see what happens to the rabbit next. You know, that kind of, you know, just some sort of a piece of a jigsaw instead of a movie, you know, and that's what I'm really feeling with superhero films just now. Like, it's a piece of a jigsaw I'm not even that especially interested in. I can't remember how a lot of these movies ended and so on, you know, so I don't know. I think we need to move away from that. I think it's a huge mistake to just set these things up as ads for your next movie. We made that mistake in comics. I mean, back in the early 1990s when I was not in American comics yet, I remember I was reading them and I actually sort of stopped reading them because what I was always getting was a piece of a puzzle. I was never getting a story. I was getting an event that had been organised by an accounts department who were thinking about the next financial quarter, not what was good for the stories. And I feel the movies are kind of going the same way. And once that genie's out of the bottle, it's very hard to put it back in. Like, you'll notice now that, for example, Captain America, they had to show up with Iron Man, you know, to make it an event so people are more excited about it. You've got Thor guest starring the Hulk, you know, you've got, after Man of Steel didn't do so well, you know, you need Batman in there and then Wonder Woman to show that up. And Spider-Man coming in, it's like kitchen sink stuff, you know, to try and keep you interested. And it's very hard to go down from there because studio executives are going to sort of look at it and say, oh, how come there was a 300 million dip on the next movie? So people always feel they have to keep throwing everything at it and making it bigger and bigger. And the only thing that happens then is bust, you know, because you cannot just do event after event after event, as we found in comics. So I don't know, I'd love somebody to have the confidence to just let it go a little quieter again. That's what I like about the Fox movies, I have to say, and I'm not just saying this because they're my friends. But I like the fact that Wolverine is just kind of a movie. You know, it's kind of got a beginning, a middle, and an end. That last Wolverine movie was great. Next one's looking really good. And like same with XMen too. I mean, they do interlink, but they are very satisfying in their own right as well. I think you could just watch Days of Future Past and just get it. You know, it just works, or X-Men First Class. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that. And it's another reason why I kind of like these characters being split over all the studios too. I think it works in their favour because it's a mess when you put everything together and it becomes something that's aimed entirely at hardcore fans instead of the mainstream audiences, which they cultivated very, very well last decade.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, you know, it's almost a huge disappointment, you know, if you start watching a film and then you realise, okay, it's just stopped.
Yeah.
It's fine years later when you've got the next installment and you can just keep watching.
Yeah.
So you also want it to be a satisfying experience in itself,
Yeah.
making the audience want more, naturally, just because they enjoyed the film they watched.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think like cinema's expensive, especially if you have children and it's a night out. The time you buy popcorn and drinks and everything, that's a big night out.
Yeah.
And if you feel you're watching an ad for the next film, you're eventually going to feel burned, I think. And I think that's when you'll spot declines coming in, So I don't know. I think it's not a problem right now, but I think it's something that the studios have to watch.
Yeah, I agree with that. So you mentioned Wolverine. Now he appeared. I assume everyone's seen it by this point. In X-Men Apocalypse, he appeared in one scene, and it was markedly sort of more violent than the rest. Does this suggest a darker tone, perhaps, for Wolverine 3?
I think they've already said that they're doing an R-rated version of it, So so that was always Jim Mangold's plan. Certainly, I mean, he's talked about this for a long time. It's not in response to Deadpool or anything. I think if you have a character with adamantium claws popping out of his hands, he lends himself to violence. It kind of works in that context. Where R-rated, I think, is a mistake is if you try and enforce that on, like I say, Nova or Spider-Man or something that should probably be a little lighter.
So you've got lots of your comic book are being adapted into films at the moment. I've got a list. There's American Jesus, Super Crooks, Chrononauts, Starlight, and Empress, all in production.
Yep.
For anyone not familiar, could you perhaps give me a brief overview of each?
Yeah, sure. I think there may even be another couple. Superior will actually be the next one filming. Kingsman Golden Circle should be finished filming. Matthew finishes, I think, in August. And Matthew's producing Superior. We should hopefully have that shooting at the end of the year. We have our director, and the screenplay is fantastic. It's a genuinely funny screenplay. And the thing I love about it, I remember when Man of Steel came out, I was kind of worried they were going to do what we were planning for Superior, which is in the same way that Kingsman is a love letter to the James Bond movies we grew up with. Superior is a love letter to Richard Donner's Superman, like a fun superhero thing, where it's a big magic wish kind of movie. It feels very much like an 80s Amblin movie or something. So I was kind of scared Man of Steel was going to go in that direction, and I was so delighted when they ended up going so dark. It was great. So Superior is probably going to be the next one, and like I say, after this, there's a sort of whole bunch of them that are all just ready to roll. We've got the screenplay in for Starlight, which is terrific, and the idea of that is kind of Buck Rogers meets Unforgiven. It's like an old man who was a sci-fi hero 35 years ago, back for one last adventure. So he's in his early 60s now, doesn't quite fit into his spacesuit and everything. But like Unforgiven, he's called back for one last adventure. He saved the universe once and he's back to do it again because these people believe in him because he did it before. And the legend of him is kind of bigger than who he is. Then Empress is another sci-fi thing, which is really fun. I wanted to do a hero mother story because you never really get hero mothers. Like you would get hero boys and you would get hero men. And really, since about 2010, you started in mainstream pop culture seeing the hero girl. So you had Hit Girl, you had Hannah, you had Katniss, and all this kind of thing, which is great. And Rey now, most recently with Star Wars, excellent. But the one demographic that's still untouched in terms of action heroine really is the mother. Somebody who has given birth to a child. So you have surrogate mother figures, like Ripley, for example, in the second Alien film. And that's a very powerful dynamic, something like a mature woman looking after a young girl in a deadly environment. Yeah. But there's just something about it when, she'd only just met you, So, but imagine it's your own 3 children and you're in a deadly environment. That's quite interesting, So I played around with that with Empress, and it's all about basically what it would be like to be Darth Vader's wife or Ming the Merciless's wife, and you're having to get the hell out of there and take your children with you, and all the forces of evil are after you. That's the plot of Empress. Chrononauts is kind of like Apollo 13 meets the Time Machine. It's like man's first step in time. In the same way that we explore space, this is us exploring time. It all goes horribly wrong. Huck is my reaction. I keep coming back to Man of Steel, but I think I was quite traumatized by it. Huck is my reaction to Man of Steel in the sense that I just wanted to do something that was incredibly upbeat after seeing something that was very dark, and to create the purest character I could create. So I came up with a guy who had learning difficulties, who had this unique ability. So it's kind of like a guy in a small town, like a Twilight Zone episode almost, Guy in a small town with this odd ability, and the town love him and they protect him and keep him sheltered from the outside world. But it's about the outside world finding out this guy exists, and he's kind of like Peter Sellers and being there. It feels more like a Hal Ashby movie than a superhero movie. So I don't know, that's what I'm sort of juggling at the moment. Yeah.
So just a little bit then.
Well, you know, it's not bad. Like, it always sounds a lot, but I actually pace myself really well. Like, because I don't do big extended 5-year runs on things, it looks like I'm doing more than I am, you know. So Reborn, the thing I'm doing with Greg Capullo, for example, which is all a big, well, I don't want to say too much about it. I'm trying to keep this one under wraps, but it's 6 issues long, and that's it. But it'll hopefully make a big impact and everything. Empress has made a big impact. Jupiter's Legacy, the thing I'm doing with Frank Whiteley, they're very finite series. I like just reinventing the wheel every 12 weeks or so. I like to give myself a new challenge every 12 weeks and jump onto a new project. So it looks like I'm doing more than I actually am, but in reality, you know, my family, we do volunteer work on a Friday usually, and we work extra hard kind of Monday to Thursday. So I kind of start working about 7 a.m. Monday to Thursday. I wrap up about 6, do my Los Angeles calls about 6 o'clock each or something for an hour. And then the evening's my own. I don't even, you know, switch on the phone. Like, my phone is literally off and in a drawer. So I'm pretty good at, you know, I just do a 4-day week, but quite an intense 4-day week.
Fantastic. Would you ever consider your own sort of crossover event? So
yeah, I'd love that.
Huck and KickAss or whoever it may be.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, I've actually talked about this, and I'd love to do it. It's just the time, you know, because I've got the Huck sequel planned. I have the Empress sequel planned and everything, and it's just carving out the time to do it. But I think in a couple of years' time, I probably will, because I would just love it. You know, I'd love to see, especially when you've got these blended genres, you know, so you've got sci-fi characters, hit girl, all that kind of thing. Just a big 10-issue story that has everyone in it. And because some of them, like Empress is set 65 million years ago on Earth, you know, it was a pre-us civilization on Earth. The Chrononaut characters, because they can travel to time, can move those characters forward and so on. So there's plenty of ways that you can bring everybody together. And I've got a kind of loose story in mind for it, actually. You know, so a couple of years down the line, I'll probably do that.
Fantastic. So when you're sort of writing these, they do sort of exist in their own worlds, but do you see it as being one sort of universe? Are there any sort of ties that sort of bind them together?
Totally tied together. I've always planned it this way. You know, like at the end of, I think it's issue 2 of Wanted, you see a torn red cape hanging up, and that ties into Jupiter's Legacy, which came out 10 years later. You know, where you have the red cape on Utopian, and that's where that's come from and everything. The whole thing is one massive story that ties together, I think, probably about 20 franchises. I think 20 franchises have come together into this mega story. But I'm not being hypocritical, because I'm not doing what I complain about with the movies, where you have to read them all to understand them. I kind of like the idea of it being very subtle. You know, there's just these little hints where you're like, oh, you know. And like, for example, the Jupiter's Legacy and Jupiter's Circle stories, they're actually comic books within the KickAss universe. Right. But you don't see this overtly, you just see it on a poster in the background or something like this. So I like the idea of making a universe that's so real, it even has its own entertainment, which you can then also read. So all the books in yourself do tie together.
Fantastic. So one thing I was wondering, J.K. Rowling recently brought Harry Potter to the theatre.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider bringing any of your work to the stage? And if so, what do you think might work best?
You know, I've never actually considered that. I think because most of my stuff tends to be quite widescreen, so it'd be very difficult to do in theatre. What makes it work? I can't really think of anything. I mean, I was somebody who used to hate theatre, and now I actually love it. I'm sort of obsessed with it. The last 5 years or so, I go all the time. And I don't know what it is. I think it's probably just hanging around actors. And actors give you a bit of an appreciation of theatre. And I sort of get why they love it. And it's funny because they don't get paid much money for doing it. And they'll make much more money doing a movie or something, but they cannot wait to finish doing a film and go and do 3 weeks on the stage. And I get it. It's because when we are standing watching them from behind the camera, they're doing 10 takes. And there's no reaction from anyone. You know, there's just somebody moaning and a guy smoking or something in the background, you know. Whereas on stage, they get an instant reaction. They get the gasps and the laughs and all that kind of thing.
Feedback all the time for everything they're doing.
Constant feedback, and it's electric. You know, it is actually quite electric, and it can go wrong at any moment. And you've got usually 100 minutes to try and get through as well. So it's really interesting for an actor. It's a real challenge. So I kind of get the immediacy of it. I described it when I was younger as being like primitive cinema, because it was like cinema without close-ups or music and everything like that, you know. But I actually think it's more like being at the scene of an accident or a scene of a crime or something, because you're so close to the trauma that's going on or whatever on stage. It's really exciting. So I've kind of got into my works. I don't know. I don't really see what could work. I'm looking at other things though. Like a friend of mine has done a board game of one of my franchises. Things like that's kind of interesting to me. You know, like I love the idea of expanding into new territories. We've already had a lot of merchandise with our things like Kingsman and KickAss and so on, the movie-related stuff. But I kind of like the idea of doing unusual things like board games. It's a world that I'm suddenly quite interested in, and we're setting up a deal for our second board game now. So.
Fantastic. Speaking of that, actually, I watched Kingsman again the other day, and there's a scene where they're in a meeting and the people aren't actually there, but they put these glasses on so you can see everybody else.
Yeah.
Lots of companies are bringing out virtual reality things in the next sort of year or two, PlayStation, Microsoft. Would you ever think of extending that way, maybe?
Well, it's funny you say that because virtual reality is something that in the last week has just come into my life. A guy who runs a big company who is involved in virtual reality platforms. I can't really say who he is because he ties in with something else that I'm working on at the moment. But Lucy and I were down in London last week, and on Friday we met this guy for lunch. And he was talking to us about that, the idea of extending some of the stuff into this, because I didn't realise how immediate it is, like how it's like going to be a Christmas present. Whereas I saw it as something that, you know, Bill Gates would have in his house or something like that. I didn't realise it's something we're all going to have like next year. But weirdly, I've also been invited on Friday to go up to the BBC. One of my friends who works up there said to me, do you want to come up and try out this virtual reality thing? It's as close to the holodeck as we actually have now, you know, so come up, and I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. So we're going to head along on Friday and check it out at 11 o'clock. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait.
Yeah, so you have to let me know how you get on with that. Sounds like a lot of fun. I was wondering what it'd be like if, you know, at the moment you get films and then you get films in 3D and you get some films released in IMAX.
Yeah.
There'll be a stage in the future where some films could be filmed completely 360 degrees and you put the glasses on, and so the scene's happening in one place.
Yeah.
There might have to be something they do digitally to add this background, but you know, if you could actually just look around and see the back of the wall and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's funny, I went to this weekend, it was a weeks-long retreat I got sent on by Channel 4 about 15 years ago, and it was very interesting because they were talking about interactive television, and they thought interactive television was going to be the next big thing. And they said you won't just be watching a soap opera, you will be deciding what happens in the soap opera and you'll interact with the characters and so on. And that never happened. It was funny because they thought game was going to replace drama because they thought people would want to interact. And I actually think that drama is a very passive medium where we sometimes like to sit back and just be entertained. So I think you're right. I think we'll be able to sort of watch these things and maybe see them in a slightly different dimension, but I don't think we'll be self-editing them. You know, we'll still be a very passive thing because it's nice to chill out and be entertained by something.
I think if you could sort of self-edit too, it would sort of lose the drama of whatever you're watching because you would decide if the character lives or dies, and it's more like a God thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it'll do what happened with games, which is that the technology exists to decide how a movie ends, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a better movie. Like, because there's guys who are really good at what they do who decide what happens in a film, and film editors will spend 6 months editing it in such a way to get the most excitement and the most emotion and everything out of that so that you feel satisfied by the end. So if you treat a movie or a story like a video game as an interactive experience, then you're going to be disappointed. I think drama and games to me are two separate things, both excellent, but you know, I think audiences want to be passive.
I completely agree. So I was wondering, what's the best advice you've ever received, and what would you say to someone looking to get into comic books?
Best advice I was ever given, probably Grant Morrison when I was about 18, when I met him. I interviewed him for a magazine when I was a student, and I said to him, I want to be a writer and an artist, and I was showing him some of my samples, and he said, choose one, don't try both, because it's really hard to be good at one thing. So to be really good at two things is almost impossible. And there are guys who've done it, like Frank Miller and John Barman and everything. There are guys who've done it, but they really are the exceptions. You know, it's very, I mean, drawing comics is it's a lifetime's learning to be half decent, you know. And same with being a writer as well. People think because they can type, they can write, and then it's two entirely different things. If the reader judges whether you're good or not, you know. So I think that was great advice, and I genuinely picked writing because drawing was too expensive. Because you had to buy paper and I had to buy ink and decent pencils and a board, whereas typing I could use the university typewriter, and that's what I did. I just bought some paper and just wrote stories.
Fantastic. So you're a big advocate of having females in your story, strong roles, and of course you've introduced a woman of colour in your latest sort of KickAss adventure. What do you think about sort of LGBT characters? Do you think we might see them in the future more?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's something, everything I've ever done, really, you know, I've always thought, you know, just to make the cast vary, just not out of any political correctness or anything like that, just to make it interesting, you know, and like the world. Like, if you have all your characters being 31-year-old white males, it's just going to look like a 1950s country club, isn't it? It's like, that's of no sort of common experience to anybody who's reading your books. You know, when you look at your circle of friends, I base so many things on my pals and people I hang out with. So naturally, you're going to have a very broad spectrum of people, you know, that you put into your stories. And I think that's why people connect with it too, because it's like this is a shared experience. It's something they understand because it's kind of like their life, you know. So I never actually think, okay, like I'll have a transgender character here, I'll have a black character here, and all that. I always think there's a cynicism to that, you know. I think if you have a story to tell, like for example, in Jupiter's Circle, I wanted to tell a story about somebody with two secret identities because the story was set in 1958, and if you're gay in 1958 and you know, you're very well known like a superhero would be, you're going to be ruined in America if you're outed. And suddenly that seemed very interesting as a story. You know, I was just thinking of just some ideas. And we live in a world now that is by no means perfect, but sort of in the West generally, it's less of an issue than it was 50 years ago if somebody's gay, for example. You know, like it's not going to ruin you. You know, it might be a little awkward in certain situations, but generally most people are pretty progressive, and generally you can still keep the job you have, and your circle of friends aren't going to hate you and all this sort of thing. 1958 was very different, you know, so even some of the biggest movie stars in the world were secretly gay. And I've been reading this book on called Gay LA, you know, talking about like gay Hollywood. And that was very interesting. There was a guy called Scotty Bowers who'd written this book. I don't know if you've seen that book, Scotty Bowers' book. It came out about 3 years ago. It's fascinating because he was basically a guy who used to hook people up. Like movie stars needed somebody they could trust to hook them up with men and women if they were gay, gay or lesbian. So they had this guy Scotty Bowers who didn't take any money. He wasn't like a pimp or anything like that. He used to just help people out, and he worked in a gas station. He had a black book, and like famous guys would roll in, like Cary Grant or Walter Pidgeon or something like that, and he'd hook them up with some young guy who was doing gardens for somebody, you know. So he basically knew everyone, and he secretly connected everyone, and he's kept it secret until everyone died. He said he didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings or their careers or anything when they were alive. And that seemed really interesting to me, you know, and I thought I'll do a superhero comic kind of like that. So it's a secret gay superhero in Los Angeles in 1958. And it just seems so much more interesting than writing about being a gay celebrity now, you know, because it's so easily accepted by comparison. So the story's always got to come first for me, you know, like I'll only write a story about like a gay or transgender character if there's an interesting story to tell, you know. And to me, like the idea of an African-American female kick-ass is interesting because we've seen a lot of white 30-year-old superheroes and we haven't seen that many black female heroes, you know, so I thought that's kind of interesting. That's a story I haven't seen before, and that got me excited about sitting down and writing.
Absolutely, and I think even sort of, you know, in the Marvel universe, Black Widow's not had her own film yet, and I know DC's doing a Wonder Woman one, but it's male dominated, isn't it?
It's a funny thing, isn't it? Because I think the logic has been that the super heroine movies hadn't worked in the past, right?
Elektra and Catwoman.
Yeah, they would use. I mean, Elektra and Catwoman are really bad movies, right? They're terrible movies, and they didn't not work because they were women. They didn't work because they were terrible movies. You know, that was the link. If that level of talent that Catwoman had behind it had done Spider-Man would have been a complete disaster, right? So I think in a weird way, those two films, you know, did a lot of damage to the idea of a female superhero movie. And you could show the numbers and say, look, this isn't working out. Look how much money Spider-Man and X-Men are making. Look what this did. But we've seen it, you know. I mean, like Hit Girl's been incredibly popular, you know, like with obviously Star Wars with Rey and everything. You know, like we talked about, Hunger Games, gigantic. So I think Hollywood has slowly woken up to the fact that girls want action heroes too. And I'm baffled by the fact there's not a Black Widow movie, because in terms of all the actors in the Avengers movies and the Marvel movies, I mean, right across the spectrum, Scarlett Johansson is by far the biggest star.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Even more than Robert Downey Jr., I think. You know, Downey Jr.'s got like Iron Man and possibly Sherlock Holmes, But Scarlett Johansson, if you put her in a movie, it opens at a certain number. And like, Lucy, I mean, the money Lucy made is incredible. And she carried that movie herself. There's nobody else that's a big name in that picture. There's no brand behind it that has any brand loyalty or anything. So Scarlett Johansson's a movie star, so it does seem very odd that they haven't done it. But from what I hear, they are planning it, so I hope they do it sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. There's even stuff like the latest Star Wars, The Force Awakens, Rey was sort of removed from a lot of the marketing to start with until it was actually the fans that sort of got behind, sort of got Disney to bring. I mean, she should have been there to start with, but, those board games that she wasn't in, where they'd have like a generic Stormtrooper instead and stuff like that.
It's nuts, because that's what made it interesting. It was like, when you see something you haven't seen before, that's cool. If you see something you see all the time, it's like, I wouldn't be that interested. So I like the fact that, as BB-8 looked cool, and seeing her walking along with BB-8, that's what sold the movie to me. And like my 4-year-old, like, she's quite obsessed with superheroes and sci-fi, and she loves Flash Gordon, Sinbad, all the things I liked when I was a kid. And her interface with Star Wars was Rey. Like, we went to the Disney shop, and we eventually, it took us a long time, but we did track down some Rey toys. And then she wanted to see the movie after she played with the toys. So to cut out one half of the human species, from your potential box office is nuts. So they've learned a lesson, and the next one I'm sure they'll have Rey up front.
Exactly. Now, where can people go to find out more about your projects, and where can they sort of find you online?
I'm online too much, so you'll get me at any point. Like, I'm online when I should be writing. I'm always on Twitter. I say I work really hard Monday to Thursday. I work really hard on Twitter Monday to Thursday. Do a little bit of writing around the sites. But like, you can get me at Mr. Mark Millar at Twitter. And also if you go to millarworld.tv, you get my website, which has these great forums. And I'm a great advocate of forums. Like, Twitter's great, but 140 character conversations that disappear into the ether. It's not the same as a forum. Now, our forums are very lively. It's great. We've got all the comic pros come along. We do fan chats. We call writers and artists. Some actors come in and everything. And it's brilliant. We're a little community. We meet up all around the world for drink ups. Sometimes when I'm in town, sometimes when I'm not in town, people just get together. People have got married out of meeting on the forums. Loads of relationships that have been going on through the forums. It's very interesting. It's been running 14 years now, I think, the Millar World forums. And it's great. I absolutely love it. So I would recommend drop by, especially if you're interested in becoming a writer or artist, because we do talent drives every year, and every July I publish 13 new creators, like, get them out there in a Millar World book starting next month, actually.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great pleasure having you on the Sarah O'Connell Show. I'm a huge fan of your work, and I look forward to seeing what's coming out next.
Thanks very much. Next time I'll shave, I promise. I had no idea this was a video thing, so I will shave and brush my hair next time.
It's fine. My house is only tidy in this exact area. Like, there's just piles of stuff all around it. Very strategic. Those books are just covering mess. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thanks, you too. All the best then.
Thank you. Speak to you later. Bye.
Bye.
For this week's competition, I've teamed up with Lionsgate Movies to give away a trio of must-have horror DVDs, including The Lazarus Effect, one of my favourite films from 2013, You're Next, and the newly released film starring Isla Fisher and Jim Parsons called Visions. Now, for a chance to win, all you need to do is head over to the comment section on YouTube and tell me what your favourite horror film of all time is. The competition's open to UK residents aged 18 years and over, and I'll be announcing the competition winner very soon. I wish you the very best of luck. That wraps things up for this week. Thank you so much for watching the third episode. I sincerely do hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks again to Lionsgate Movies and Mark Millar. Be sure to subscribe and share, and stay tuned for episode 4, where I'll be interviewing Boy Meets Girl actress Rebecca Root. Until then, I've been Sarah O'Connell, you've been fantastic, and I'll see you soon for another edition of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye!